There was a time when I talked about my goals constantly. I talked about the business I wanted to build, the body I wanted to have, the discipline I was working on, the future I promised myself was coming. And every time I spoke about it, people reacted. Wow, that's inspiring. You're going to make it. You're different. For a few minutes, I felt successful. But then I would go home, sit alone in my room, open my laptop, and do almost nothing. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And the scary part? I became addicted to talking about the life I wanted instead of building it. One night, I realized something painful. The people around me thought I was progressing, but deep down, I knew I was standing still. That was the night I made one decision that changed everything. I stopped talking about my goals. I stopped announcing my plans, stopped explaining my next move, stopped posting every ambition online, stopped looking for validation before I had results. And what happened after that honestly shocked me. Because silence did something motivation never could. It forced me to work. This story is about what happened when I disappeared for a while and finally became the person I kept talking about. Stay until the end, because the final lesson is something most people learn too late. Let me tell you something nobody warns you about. Talking about your goals feels productive. That's why it's dangerous. When you tell people what you're going to do, your brain receives a small reward, a tiny sense of achievement. People praise you. They encourage you. They admire your ambition. And for a moment, your mind confuses attention with progress. I didn't understand this before. I thought being passionate meant speaking loudly about your dreams. So I did. I talked about waking up at 5 a.m. I talked about becoming disciplined. I talked about learning skills. I talked about changing my life. But the truth? I was spending more energy explaining the journey than walking it, and slowly I became someone who looked ambitious, but wasn't moving. You know what hurt the most? I started noticing a pattern. The more I talked, the less I actually did. I would announce a new plan with excitement. For 2 or 3 days, I'd feel unstoppable. Then reality would arrive. The work became repetitive, boring, slow, no applause, no audience, no instant results. And suddenly the dream that sounded beautiful in conversation felt heavy in real life. That's when procrastination entered, not because I was lazy, but because I was emotionally exhausted from pretending I had already started succeeding. There's a kind of loneliness that comes from disappointing yourself quietly. Nobody sees it. People still think you're motivated. They still think you're progressing. But deep down, you know the truth. You know the books are untouched. The habits are inconsistent. The promises are broken. And eventually you stop trusting yourself. That's the real damage, not failure, self-betrayal. Because every time you say, "Tomorrow I'll change," and don't, a part of your mind stops believing you. And once you lose trust in yourself, even simple goals start feeling impossible. That's where I was. Not broke, not hopeless, just tired of hearing myself talk. It happened late at night. I remember sitting in my room staring at my phone. I had just spent almost an hour telling someone about my future plans, how I was going to transform my life, how this year would be different, how I finally had clarity. But after the call ended, the room became quiet. Too quiet. And in that silence, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. If I stopped talking, would I still work? That question hit me harder than any failure ever had, because I realized something terrifying. A part of me didn't want success. It wanted recognition. I liked the identity of being someone with big goals. But identity without action becomes delusion. That night, I looked around my room. Half-finished projects, saved motivational videos, unwritten plans, empty notebooks filled with titles but no progress. It looked like a museum of potential, and I was tired of living inside potential. Potential doesn't change your life, action does. So I made a private decision. No announcement, no dramatic speech, no social media post. Just one sentence in my head. Work in silence. That was it. Simple. But that sentence changed my life more than years of motivation ever did. The first week felt strange. Nobody knew what I was doing anymore. No updates, no inspirational posts, no conversations about grinding. And honestly, my ego hated it. Because when you stop talking about your goals, you lose instant validation. Nobody claps for private discipline. Nobody praises the mornings you wake up early in silence. Nobody sees the nights you keep working when you're tired. And that's exactly why most people quit. Because the world celebrates visible ambition more than invisible consistency. At first, I kept reaching for my phone. I wanted to tell someone. I wanted people to know I was improving. But every time I felt that urge, I asked myself, do I want attention or results? That question became my filter, and slowly, something interesting started happening. Without constant talking, I had more energy, more focus, more emotional control, because I wasn't spending my motivation explaining my future anymore. I was finally using it to build my present. And for the first time in years, my confidence started becoming real. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind built through repetition, the kind nobody sees. Most people think confidence comes before action. It doesn't. Confidence comes from evidence, keeping promises to yourself, showing up repeatedly, doing difficult things consistently. That's where real self-esteem is born. Not in motivational quotes, not in public declarations, in proof. And silence helps because it removes performance. When nobody is watching, you meet your real self. That's when excuses become visible. That's when discipline becomes honest. I learned that motivation is emotional, but systems are spiritual. Because systems carry you on days emotions disappear. So I stopped chasing inspiration. Instead, I focused on small daily wins. Wake up, exercise, read, work, repeat. Simple, boring, unimpressive, but life-changing. That's another truth nobody talks about. Your future is usually built in boring days, not dramatic moments. The world loves breakthroughs, but breakthroughs are usually hidden inside hundreds of ordinary days nobody applauds. Around the second month, something unexpected happened. People stopped asking about my goals. At first, that hurt, because part of my identity had been built around appearing ambitious. And now, I looked normal, average, quiet, invisible. But invisibility became my advantage, because when nobody expects anything from you, you can finally focus. No pressure to impress. No pressure to perform. No pressure to look successful before becoming successful. Just work. And slowly, my life started changing. Not overnight, not magically, but realistically. My habits improved. My focus improved. My mind became calmer. And the biggest change? I stopped needing motivation to begin. That's when I realized discipline isn't about intensity. It's about identity. When you become someone who works regardless of mood, your life changes permanently. Most people only work when they feel inspired. But feelings are unstable. Rainy days come, stress comes, heartbreak comes, failure comes. If emotions control your actions, your future becomes fragile. Discipline is different. Discipline says, I may not feel powerful today, but I will still continue. That mindset changed everything for me. Months passed, quietly. Then one day, something strange happened. The same people who used to hear me talk about my dreams started asking questions. Wait, when did you get so focused? How are you suddenly so disciplined? What changed? And I almost laughed, because nothing changed suddenly. They were just seeing the results late. That's the thing about silent work. People only notice it after the results appear. Nobody sees the invisible repetitions. The early mornings, the lonely nights, the boring routines, the days you wanted to quit but didn't. Success often looks sudden from the outside, but from the inside, it's usually years of invisible effort. And honestly, hearing compliments felt different now. Before, compliments fed my ego. Now, they meant almost nothing compared to the peace of respecting myself again. That was the real reward, not money, not attention, not praise, self-respect. Because once you trust yourself again, life feels lighter. You stop overthinking every decision. You stop needing constant validation. You stop performing ambition and start living it. And that changes the way you walk, think, speak, and exist. We live in a world where people feel pressure to document every step. Every idea becomes content. Every plan becomes an announcement. Every goal becomes public before it's even built. But there's danger in exposing fragile dreams too early. A seed grows underground first for a reason. Constant exposure kills growth. Some goals need privacy. Some dreams need silence. Some transformations need protection. Not because you're hiding, but because you're building. There's power in letting your actions mature before showing the world. Because when you stop seeking applause, your standards become internal instead of external. And internal standards are stronger. You no longer work to impress people. You work because you respect your future self. That's maturity. Before all this, I thought disciplined people were special. I thought they woke up every day full of energy and certainty, but now I know the truth. Discipline is often quiet and emotional. Some days, disciplined people feel tired too. They doubt themselves too. They struggle too. The difference is simple. They continue anyway. That's it. No magic, no secret mindset, just repetition. The ability to keep moving even when emotions disappear. And over time, repetition changes identity. You stop saying, I'm trying to become disciplined. Instead, you become someone who naturally does disciplined things. That shift is powerful because identity drives behavior. If you see yourself as inconsistent, your actions follow that story. But if you slowly prove to yourself that you are reliable, your entire mind changes. And that transformation starts privately, not publicly. The strongest seasons of your life may look unimpressive from the outside. That's normal. Growth is usually invisible before it becomes visible. A tree spends years strengthening roots before people admire its height. Human beings are similar. Some seasons are for planting, some are for building, some are for healing. Not every season is meant to be displayed. And honestly, protecting your energy becomes easier once you stop needing everyone to understand your journey. Because most people won't understand your process anyway. They only understand results. So stop trying to explain yourself constantly. Your life becomes calmer when your focus becomes private. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's this. Your dreams don't need more conversation. They need more hours, more uncomfortable mornings, more consistency, more patience, more silent effort. Talking has a place, but eventually, words must step aside and let actions speak. Because the truth is simple. A person who quietly improves every day will always defeat someone who constantly announces intentions but never follows through. And maybe that's hard to hear, but it's freeing too, because it means your future doesn't depend on talent, or luck, or motivation. It depends on whether you can continue when nobody is watching. That's the real test. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I never stopped talking. Maybe I would still be stuck in the same cycle, excited, inspired, hopeful, but unchanged. And honestly, that's one of the saddest places a person can live. Not failure, unrealized potential, knowing you could become more, but never fully committing long enough to find out. That's why silence became sacred to me. Because in silence, I met the version of myself that didn't need applause anymore. The version willing to work without recognition, to improve without announcing it, to struggle privately, to grow honestly. And if you're listening right now feeling frustrated with yourself, feeling behind, feeling inconsistent, feeling tired of starting over, maybe your next breakthrough doesn't require more motivation. Maybe it requires less talking, less explaining, less announcing, less proving, and more doing. Quietly, patiently, daily. One day at a time. Because one day, people will ask how you changed so much, and they'll never fully understand the answer. Because the transformation happened in silence. If this story spoke to you, don't just leave with motivation. Leave with a decision. For the next 30 days, stop announcing your goals to everyone. Instead, build quietly. Let your habits speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your results speak. And when success finally arrives, you won't need to convince anyone. They'll see it. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who's serious about changing their life silently, patiently, and for real. And remember, some of the most powerful moves you'll ever make will happen in silence.